right? We manipulate molecules. Zyvex takes and engineers molecules to give materials properties you didn't think they would have. So we can take plastic and make it act like a metal. If you know what carbon fiber is, our technology, when applied, is carbon fiber on steroids. So if you think of airplanes, boats, trains, automobiles, if you have kids and they play softball, there's a good chance they're playing with a powered by Zyvex bat. So our technology makes materials do much better things. And as Nick said, we're kind of an anomaly in that we really started the company in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. And I remember telling my wife, we're moving a company to Ohio. You know, and that, trust me, that wasn't a popular evening in the household, but we went ahead and did it. And the interesting part of it was, most people don't realize, okay, so we're a polymer technology company. Why would we go to the Rust Belt, right? That's the Midwest. Everybody thinks of the Midwest. That's the old Midwest, right? That's automotive and steel and all these things. And we don't really have anything to do with that. Actually, our goal is to replace steel, right? Steel's heavy, it's old technology. But what we found out was, and as the panel talked about earlier, is the ecosystem for nanotechnology and all the right components you need to grow a company actually exist in the Midwest. And I didn't really believe it. You know, when we were talking about where we're going to put the company, I thought San Diego sounded good to me. I didn't have enough shares to vote to override it. But so we moved it to Ohio. And like I was saying earlier, there's a fair amount of nanotech in the Midwest. And you know, the panel talked about when you do extracurricular things, you need to bump into people that share your same problems, that have the same passion, that have, you know, the channel access you need to grow your company, that you're close to universities where the research they do is relevant to your space, that there's other components and other businesses that you can partner with, right, that can help you grow the company. So Nick asked me to talk a little bit about how does a little company like Zyvex, you know, when you end up in the Midwest, how do you compete? How do you retain talent? How do you attract talent? And I was telling about as far as attracting talent, to us, it's very similar to if you're selling a product, right? The easier you make it for your customers to buy your products, or the more well-known you are, then the easier it is to have them come to you. So what we try to do is really get involved with, you know, all the community as a whole, from academia to other companies to other things where we can help promote it. I sit on a Council of Innovation at Fisher School of Business, where Nick is from. And it's just being part of that community so you can get your name out there and let people know that you're interested in new talent. And as far as retaining talent, right, that's a tough thing, especially for a small company. If we were to go to the East Coast or the West Coast, right, when you think of nanotech, you might go to Berkeley or MIT. But if you go there, you got to look at the competition, right? Then I've got to compete against the Dows, the DuPonts, the Mercks, the Pfizers. And trust me, they have much bigger bank accounts than we do. So what we've decided to do to help retain talent and get people interested in the company and want to stick around is offer the intangibles, right? One thing I've found, especially in the new leadership that's evolving, right, and the new talent that's coming out of whether it's universities or just other early stage companies, is they're not necessarily motivated by money, right? That it's always an important part and it's always at least part of the decision, but it's the intangibles, right? So as a company, the way we hold on to our talent is offering them the intangibles. And what I mean by that is we'll turn over big projects to guys right out of college, right out of Fisher School of Business. We'll actually give them a big enough part of the business and a big enough part of the company so that the motivation to actually see it be successful goes beyond how many dollars they're going to bring home that day, week, or month. So that's a big part of it. And the other thing we found is that they really enjoy the ability to, let me back up. What I was going to say is they really enjoy the ability to be a part of something bigger, right? It's not just, like I said earlier, about what kind of money can you get and what kind of things can you do. It's can I change, I won't say change the world, but can I be part of a company that has technology that can actually change a lot of things? So one of the things I wanted to confirm from Nick while I was out here, and I'm going to steal a line from Mark Twain, is that the death of the Midwest has been highly over-exaggerated. A lot of people don't realize that. So that's a big part of what we've decided to do. Thinking back to the time when we decided to move the company there, like I said earlier, we looked at all the other places out there and decided that, once you're in a location where the other parts of the business can help it materialize, that's your best chance for expansion. So there's all kinds of programs we can do, all kinds of different things you can do to really help generate that enthusiasm and be a part of stuff like this. I mean, I just think this is awesome to be part of this kind of conference where you get so many people together, so many smart minds together, and you can exchange ideas. And an example at the thing last night, we were talking, I was talking to one of the photographers for National Geographic, and she was saying that cameras are too heavy. So we decided, so that's just not something I would ever think of in running a nanotech company whose objective in the world is to make things lighter and stronger. So just to be part of that culture and part of that system is what really helps. So, actually, I'm going to make up a little bit of time and go ahead and, are there any questions that anybody might have about ways to recruit talent, ways to keep talent, things that a small company, when you're trying to compete against a Merck or a Pfizer or a Dow or a DuPont, beyond offering the intangibles, what it's like to be in part of the Midwest where everybody seems to overlook it and think that it really doesn't exist. And one thing I want to add to that real quick is another reason we tend to stay away from some of the bigger universities and bigger places, the East and the West, is those tend to be, in my opinion, over-harvested, right? That's, again, all the competition's there, and if you go to some of the places that are under-harvested, you tend to have a better choice of what's out there. And kind of further to that is, in a lot of the East Coast and West Coast locations, you tend to pay for the brand, right? You pay more for the brand than you do for the product, and then in places like the Midwest, you actually get more product and you don't have to pay for the brand. So that's kind of the way we look at it from a perspective.
How often do you hire outside, say, a 50-mile radius or your local geographic?
It depends. We typically hire, our last 2 or 3 hires are right out of Ohio State University. So we're actually on Ohio State University campus. So by being part of that ecosystem, right, they talked about it earlier, right, being part of the right ecosystem, allows us to network on a regular basis with that type of community. Go ahead.
Why Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah, that's a great question, and they just asked me that back there. So as far as nanotech goes, and like remember earlier, right, we really manipulate molecules. And if you want the right ecosystem to do that type of stuff, believe it or not, Columbus, Ohio is a great place for that. If you were to draw the map of where are the most polymer composite companies in the United States, they're all within just a few hours of Columbus, Ohio. It's essentially the same thing as the Silicon Valley of the West, right? All the semiconductor, all the software companies are out there. But for us, the right ecosystem was Columbus, Ohio, because it had, all the big anchor companies that we tend to deal with, and all the big universities, Ohio State, University of Akron, and then companies like Owens Corning and Ashland Chemical and those kind of places. It was the right ecosystem. So like I said earlier, when you go out and do something, you bump into somebody from Ashland, right? And they can help you maybe channel a product to market, or maybe there's things you can cooperate with, joint developments you can do, and things like that. So it really made a huge difference for us in Texas, right? Texas is a little more glamorous. Ohio's not, it doesn't have the cachet that Texas has. But as far as recruiting talent, if you wanted to find a polymer chemist in Dallas, Texas, that's not impossible, but almost impossible. It's actually pretty tough to do. Sure.
What's your balance between salary, equity, and intangibles? Like, are you at market average salary, below equity?
That depends. If you ask me, we're probably over market average. If you ask the employees, they probably say they're under market average. I'm just kidding. You know what? For a little company, we really try to, I hate being average, right? To me, that's just disappointment. So as far as pay goes, just raw dollars, we're probably close to average, but the intangibles that we offer to keep our talent is really the ability to make a difference, right? It's like kids. Although I don't have kids, I've been told that you need to let them make mistakes, right? So I will let an employee make a mistake I won't let them crash the company, okay? But I will give them enough responsibility and enough authority to get something done without having to ask a bunch of people. I kind of view, if you want to cultivate leaders, right, you need to take down barriers for them to make their own decisions. And so then as far as equity goes, it's actually a pretty good chunk for a little company. Sure.
As a company that works with more of a physical material rather than software, how
Right.
has like a virtual working environment impacted your company versus software where that's maybe a little more common?
It's an excellent question, and you heard the VCs up here talking. VCs love software, right, because it's so scalable, right? You don't need this huge infrastructure. You don't need equipment. Or the equipment you need, you can probably get somewhere else. As a nanotech company, we actually are relatively virtual, which the reason I really like this question is another reason we came to the Midwest, right? The Midwest has a tremendous infrastructure of capital equipment that's been underutilized. So we actually outsource. The physical product that we make, very high probability it wasn't even made in our facility, right? We develop the technology, and then we will go find companies that already exist that are good at making the stuff and actually recruit them to do it. And, excuse me, one of our products that you might find in a baseball bat or a hockey stick is actually all done in Ohio. So the products move from one place to another and gets put in a Zyvex box, and it's all done through the Ohio network. So it's actually easy to do because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of capital equipment and underutilized resources that we took advantage of. Sure.
When you're in a more of a startup environment and you're moving from one state to another or opening up operations in a different state where the culture is different, how do you manage that first generation of, let's say, Buckeyes that are joining what's basically a Texan environment and trying to make sure that those two cultures work together well right off the bat? Sure,
another great question. We were very careful in our selection process of the people we were bringing in from we'll call it the Buckeyes, right? And we looked for a match more for personality and fit and work ethic. And one thing we were fortunate in what we brought from Texas and what we seemed to find in the Midwest was the same work ethic. It's not to say that in the other parts of the country that the work ethic is good or bad. It's just that in the Midwest it's different, right? I'll use William Rehnquist's description of porn. I can't explain it, but I know it when I see it. It's kind of the same with work ethic. So it was just a careful selection of the right type of people to fit with the core people we had already established, so we didn't have headbutting and have different cultures. Not to say there weren't growing pains. There are people that are no longer with the company because we just couldn't make that fit. So like what other technology or what other areas do we look to find out kind of like what's going on in the space? Oh, besides the Drudge Report, don't shoot me, okay? We read a lot of our customers are defense contractors, so we'll read like defense-related news. One of the guys from Fisher that works with us is a West Point grad, so we leverage his network of all his contacts in that space to kind of find out what's going on there. We'll read, a lot of what we do is composite. I know most people don't know what composites are, but we'll look to those types of journals. And a good place to find out what else is going to be going on out there is trade shows that are relative to our space. And that's also a good place to find other talent, that have some idea of what you might do. So that's kind of where we get our information from. I got 14 seconds to answer a three-part question.
How many people and what practical advice do you have to getting integrated in a new area? You seem to have done a good job in Ohio.
I'll start with the last one. Get to know people in that community that can help you. Before we picked up the company and moved it, we met with the governor, we met with business development communities. There's a really cool little It's called Tech Columbus, and I'm sure Chicago has one too, or different parts. And we met with those guys, and they also, not only did they help pave the way for us, right? They said, these are the people you need to talk to. These are the guys you need to get to know. They also, again, to bring it back to talent, right, what I'm supposed to talk about, they said, hey, these are some people that you need to get to know from a recruiting perspective and from a talent perspective that can help you grow your business. So my advice there would be just get to know the community before you get there. And I think I'm about out of time, so.